This is KGW News at noon.
If anyone arrives at our southern border after midnight tonight, they will be presumed ineligible for asylum and subject to steeper consequences for unlawful entry, including a minimum 5-year ban on re-entry and potential criminal prosecution.
Within the last hour, the Homeland Security Secretary addressed the looming end of Title 42. During the pandemic, it allowed border agents to immediately kick out migrants who entered illegally. But that order expires at 9 o'clock tonight, our time, and with thousands of migrants massing at the border, U.S. officials are trying to stop the surge. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brenda Braxton. The secretary says the U.S. border is not open, and now there's chaos and confusion as the deadline approaches. NBC's Bree Jackson has more from El Paso, Texas.
We're here in El Paso, Texas, just a few blocks away from the border, and this is one area where migrants have come to seek refuge. Now, as you can see, some are still sleeping here and camping out in this alleyway by the church, which has been helping migrants as they've come across here into Texas. Officials in this area tell me they've been preparing for this day for months. They knew it was coming. They're still unsure about what the road ahead is going to look like, but they say they are prepared to do what they can. They've been using vacant schools and other facilities to try to house the migrants. The numbers that we're seeing here, I'm told, are a lot less than what they had a few weeks ago. The mayor tells me he is expecting a surge once Title 42 ends, but they are prepared to do what they can. Border officials are urging those that have crossed the border illegally to turn themselves in and be processed or face consequences ranging from fines to prison time. And the Biden administration is urging people to do the legal pathways into the U.S. as Title 42 comes to an end. In El Paso, Texas, Bree Jackson, NBC News.
Here in Oregon today, the people's business is still on hold in Salem. The Republican walkout now in its 9th day. But just about an hour ago, we got a release from GOP leadership saying they've come to an arrangement with Democrats to suspend sessions until Monday. By then, they hope to negotiate an end to the walkout. Republicans are boycotting the session, saying some of the bills lawmakers are working on aren't written clearly. They say that's a violation of Senate rules. Democrats say the walkout is just an excuse to avoid passing controversial legislation. Now, there could be ramifications. A new law prevents any lawmaker with 10 or more unexcused absences from running for re-election. Right now, Republicans have 9, and some say they'll challenge the law in court as unconstitutional. Well, our warm spring weather also has people talking today. This is what it looks like in the Rose City this afternoon. Nothing but blue sky and sunshine. So, Rod, what do you think? Are we going to get out of the 70s today?
You know, we're on track to do it. We are warmer at this time, Brenda, than we were 24 hours ago. And 24 hours ago, we stopped at 78. So we will see, but certainly 80s in play. It is sunny pretty much all areas. Here's Chinook Winds Casino Resort in Lincoln City, blue Pacific waters. Temperature usually reports. The coast, by the way, will mostly make it up to 60 today, or even low 60s. A spot that will get into the 80s without question is out here. This is the Oregon Veterans Home camera in the Dalles, already up to 71. 80 going to be pretty easy for you folks out in Wasco County. And at 66 here in downtown Portland, we are running ahead of yesterday by a few degrees. So 66 was my noontime projection on sunrise this morning. I've got 79. Maybe 80 today, 74 a little bit later on. Now, coming up, I'll talk more about this next map. This is an excessive heat watch that has been issued starting Saturday afternoon. All areas in red. That's from the coast all the way over I-5 and out into the gorge. How hot the weekend temperatures will go. There are concerns for a number of reasons, and we'll talk more about that coming up.
Okay, we'll see you then. Thank you, Rod. Today, the COVID public health emergency in the United States comes to an end. That means, among other things, healthcare workers and educators are no longer required to get a COVID shot. It also affects the way Oregon reports COVID cases and how long you have to isolate if you get sick. Daisy Caballero has more on those changes.
The World Health Organization announced the COVID-19 public health emergency will end at midnight on Thursday, May 11th, which brings some changes. Oregon healthcare workers will no longer be required to be vaccinated against COVID, but the requirement for educators will lift at the end of the school year on June 17th.
I think it'll help our students in school have consistent classroom instruction as they get through this next phase of our response to the pandemic.
Oregon is also lifting the 5-day recommendation for isolation if you get COVID. This includes the general public and K-12 schools. Oregon health officials say this is because of widespread immunity, meaning many COVID infections are now likely asymptomatic, and the 5-day isolation window is doing little to reduce transmission.
So we ask individuals that if they've been diagnosed with COVID-19 to, again, stay home while they're sick until they've started to recover. And in those 10 days after they got sick, to consider limiting their contact with others who are particularly at high risk.
OHA will no longer report COVID cases on a weekly basis, but will start tracking cases similar to the way they track flu cases.
We will continue to do wastewater sampling across many communities in Oregon. This allows us to detect COVID-19 spread in the community and the level of spread in the community, regardless of whether people seek care or get testing.
Despite all the changes, here are a few things that will carry on after May 11th. Oregon health plan providers will continue to give COVID vaccinations and treatments at no cost, offer free access to telehealth services, and a language interpreter during an office visit.
You know, all of us involved in this response can look back on things that, knowing what we know now, we may have changed. But I think we have to look at some of the critical outcomes and how we compare to other states and feel good about our overall response.
Daisy Caballero, KGW News.
Today, Washington is also lifting COVID vaccine mandates for state employees. Governor Jay Inslee issued the order in October of 2021. He says the mandate played a key role in making state workers and their communities safer. One doctor who talked to KGW agrees.
It's clear in retrospect that many of the public health measures put in place were absolutely necessary, absolutely effective. We would still be in a pandemic situation had they not been in place.
About 2,000 state workers quit or were fired over that mandate. Those who left voluntarily can reapply, but the governor says they won't get any special consideration. We're also looking at what will happen nationally when this emergency ends. Here's Brandon Lewis with 3 changes to COVID tests and vaccines.
Using these sources, we're answering some of your most common questions about what's changing. First, are at-home tests from the federal government still free? We verified that the government will no longer send you free kits through the Postal Service. And unless you're on Medicaid, insurance companies won't have to cover COVID-19 tests either. Some states and communities will continue giving away free tests. Next, will COVID-19 vaccines remain free? We verified that, yes, COVID-19 vaccines will remain free until the national supply runs out. It's expected to last through the summer. Once that happens, vaccines will remain free for the majority of people on private and public insurance. Finally, you may remember there were a lot of vaccine mandates during the pandemic. Do federal employees and contractors need to be vaccinated? We verified that no, after May 11th, federal employees and contractors are no longer required to get vaccinated. Private employers are still free to make their own rules about whether their workers need to be vaccinated. With your Verify, I'm Brandon Lewis.
A new report gives us a better idea of just how many people around the metro area are experiencing homelessness. There are a few takeaways from what's called the point-in-time count from back in January. First off, the Tri-County area appears to be doing a better job of helping people classified as chronically homeless. Those are folks who've reported a long spell of homelessness and a disabling condition. That number fell 17% across the region compared to last year. Now, when you look at homelessness overall, here is how each county came out. Multnomah had an overall increase of 21% year over year, with more than 6,200 people now homeless. Washington County saw a 4% decrease in its homeless population with 773 people, and Clackamas had a significant decrease of 31%. There were 410 people counted as homeless there. Do keep in mind, though, point-in-time counts are limited. They only give a one-night snapshot and cannot count everybody.